Fear, anxiety, probably the biggest barriers to our success and happiness. Today at Live on Purpose TV, how to overcome fear and anxiety. I'm guessing that one of the biggest barriers to success and happiness is fear. Fear, anxiety, nervousness, a very common human experience, but it's something that gets in our way and sometimes robs us of our joy and success. Some of the paradoxes around fear. Now, to understand this, let's just take a look first at the role that fear plays for us. It's not a bad thing, okay? If we had no fear, what would happen? Now, you might think if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a very creative person who wants to accomplish some phenomenal things that you could get those things done if you had no fear. But honestly, what if you had no fear at all? We come to this earth with fears built in to keep us safe. One of the natural fears that we all have, for example, is a fear of heights or a fear of falling from those heights. Okay? Why? So that when we perceive that we're in a dangerous place, we are more careful, more vigilant. We don't go walking off of cliffs. It's built in to our system. So that's the point that I'm trying to make here. Fear serves a legitimate purpose in keeping us safe, preserving our life, and allowing us to live for another day. So we don't want to completely eliminate fear. But let's take a look at how fear works in our mind. I have to tell you a little story about me when I was younger. I have a twin sister. Hey, Pam, if you're watching. Pam is my twin sister. And we have a birthday about the same time every year. I finally figured that out a couple of years ago. Anyway, so we got to share our birthday parties when we were little kids. Now, this was really fun because she would invite all her friends. I'd invite all my friends. As we got to be teenagers, we got these mixed gender parties that were just fun. And anyway, we had a lot of fun sharing our birthday. And I remember one year we got to go to the pool. My dad worked at a place that had a pool. And he was able to secure that pool for us for our birthday party. And so Pam invited all of her friends. I invited all my friends. We went down to the pool and had a great time. I have to tell you, at the time, and I think we were, 12 maybe, 12 years old, 11 or 12. At the time, I had a fear of the diving board, which seems silly to me now, but it was a real thing then. And I don't know if I belly flopped off of it when I was younger or something had happened that maybe traumatized me and I'm afraid of the diving board. So anytime we would go to the pool as a family, for example, I would just kind of stay away from it. And it was not that big a deal because nobody's pressuring me or encouraging me to go off. Well, birthday party was a little different because sure as shooting, one of my friends suggests, hey, everybody, let's all go off the diving board. And I am immediately seized with fear, right? Because I've got this little issue with the diving board and I'm like, no! And I'm scared. My reaction at that point is completely normal because of my experience with the diving board. But notice that if my fear is normally here, it just went up a couple of notches. Do you see that? It's gone up a couple of notches because now I'm faced with the potential of having to deal with that thing that I fear. And hopefully you're doing the translation as we're talking because there's that thing that you fear, right? So just put that in place there as we have this conversation. So, what are my choices? And really, anytime we're confronted with our fear, we got basically two choices. We either face it or we avoid it. Get the heck out of there, right? What do I want to do? Get out of there. Why? Because my brain is designed to keep me safe. And I've already decided or learned that that's not safe. So I'm not going to go there. I'm going to see if I can retreat. So that option might include, okay, I'm going to get out of the pool. I'm very nonchalantly going to head on over to the dressing room where there's a bathroom. Nobody's going to question that because people get up and go to the bathroom all the time, right? I should be fine. So what if I take that course? I avoid going off that diving board because of my fear, right? And so I go hide in the dressing room. Probably nobody will notice. Birthday boy! Yeah, I'm not going to get away with that, right? So two of my friends come in and they burst open the door and they're like, where is he? There he is. I see him hiding in the corner. Come on, Paul. And they grab me by the arms and they start dragging me back out there to face my fear. All right. Now, what's happening to my fear? First of all, before we go there, notice that when I ran away from my fear, you know, it got ratcheted up a couple of notches when somebody suggested. And then I hide in the dressing room. Shoo, comes back down, right? I'm feeling relieved. I'm like, phew, dodged a bullet on that one. So my fear has come down. But now my two buddies are dragging me back out to the pool. And they get me out there on the deck of the pool. Now what's happening to my fear? Oh, we're ratcheting up all right. In fact, it's going higher than it went before. Can you see that? Why? Because I'm now closer to what I'm afraid of. And as they march me over to the diving board, and like Captain Hook and his pirate crew, they're going to make me walk the plank. And there's no escaping. I got to do this thing now. So as I'm walking out onto the diving board, do you see what's happening to my fear all along? It is getting ratcheted way up here to where it's almost unbearable. And there's no escaping though. They're, pushing me out there. And then I step off of the end of the board. And at this point, folks, I want you to notice something. My fear has just maxed out. It can't go any higher. In fact, as soon as I step off of the end of that board, now I got other things on my mind. I am trying to somehow get my nose plugged and somehow stop myself in the air, which I don't have very good air brakes, but I hit the surface of that water full force and I sink clear to the bottom of the pool. And about a half hour later, I finally get myself back up to the surface and I take that first breath of air. And now what happens to my fear? Zoom. It's way back down. In fact, it's probably lower than my baseline. There's some reasons for that. But do you see that I am totally relieved at this point. I'm feeling so much better now that I'm not facing my fear anymore. Okay, now let's look at the psychology behind all of this. Because we have these two options. We're going to face our fear or we're going to avoid our fear. We're going to do one of those things. If we face the fear and go to the diving board, what's going to happen? Our fear is going to increase short term. What if we run away and go to the dressing room and hide? Our fear is going to decrease short term. What happens in the long term? There's a goofy little piece of logic. This is fuzzy logic. I want you to be aware of it. When we avoid our fear, we feel relief. That conditions our brain to believe, erroneously, that what we are avoiding really is dangerous. Because after all, look how much better I feel when I avoid it. And we train and teach and educate our brain to believe that that thing really is dangerous, even if it's not. So long term, the next time we get to face that thing or it presents itself in our life somehow, our fear, where our baseline was here before, we just ratcheted up the baseline. And now we've got a little higher level of fear. If we do this long enough, we develop what's called a phobia. A phobia is a strong irrational fear of something that we have actually conditioned ourselves to be afraid of. And we don't even notice we're doing it because our subconscious mind just trains us to do that. When we avoid our fear, we feel relief, short term, and we feel an increase of our baseline of fear long term. We're actually making it worse. When we face our fear, we increase our fear short term, Okay, and remember, when I stepped off the end of the diving board, I hit maximum. And it's not going to go any higher than that because now I'm trying to find my nose. That's as high as it's going to go. And then I feel the relief. When I resolve in the pool and I check and everything's still there and I'm still in one piece and I'm like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And what if I were to get out of the pool again right there and go back to the diving board? Where would my fear level be? Lower, right? It might still be up a little, but it's lower than it was before because I just experienced the success. What if I do that 10 times in a row? By the end, I'm doing the cannonball. I'm doing the tuck and roll. I'm doing these fancy stuff off the diving board. Why? Because I'm no longer afraid. To face our fears increases our fear in the short term, but in the long term, it resolves that fear and allows us to bring our baseline down. So how are we going to overcome fear and anxiety? You got two choices. You're going to face it or you're going to avoid it. Okay? And everything inside of you is telling you to avoid it. The problem is that's going to increase your fear in the long run. To face it means you've got to really find the fortitude to get yourself to tolerate that increase of fear short term, because in the long term that's going to bring it down and resolve it. I'm here every day at Live on Purpose TV. I'm curious, how many of you are coming back and seeing some of the other videos? Would you leave a comment below and let me know what your experience has been?